Hello everybody, I'm Abasud and welcome to my course on IoT devices, cybersecurity and risk management. So today we are going to discuss about the challenges of a second risk mitigation technique, that is protect data security. So let's start with that. So data protection. So here we are having the title of data protection. So what can be the expectation for this type of devices and category of data protection? Is the device can prevent unauthorized access to all sensitive data on its storage devices. But in case of IoT devices, they may not provide the sufficient strong encryption capability for its stored data, or they may not provide a mechanism for sanitizing sensitive data before disposing of or repurposing the devices. Second assumption can be the device has a mechanism to support data availability through secure backup, but in case of IoT devices, it may not provide the secure backup and restore mechanism for its data. Next is the device can prevent unauthorized access to all sensitive data transmitted over network, but in case of IoT devices may not provide sufficient strong encryption capability for protecting sensitive data sent in its network communication, and also they may not verify the identity of any other computing device before sending sensitive data in its network communication. So this is what we understand the challenges for a mitigation technique, that is protect data security. Next, go forward for the next remediation, that is protect individual privacy. What are the challenges corresponding to that? So the first is device operate in a traditional federal identity environment, but in case of IoT, they may contribute the data that is used for the identity and authentication, but is outside of a traditional federal environment. Or the expectation can be the traditional interface for individual engagement with the devices, but in case of IoT, they may lack the interface that enable the individual to interact with it. Or decentralized data processing function and heterogeneous ownership of IoT devices challenge traditional accountability process. Or IoT devices may lack the interface that enable individual to read privacy notice, or IoT devices may lack interfaces to enable access of PII, that is personally identifiable information, or maybe you can say the PCI, that is payment card information may be stored in an unknown location. Next, we can talk about how the processing permits for PII data. They say there is a sufficient central control to apply the policy and regulatory requirement for PII data or PCI data. But in case of IoT device, they may collect PII or PCI data indiscriminately or analyze, share, or act upon based on the automated process. Or IoT device may be complex and dynamic with sensing functionality that can collect PII being frequently added and removed, and the IoT devices may have access remotely, allow sharing the PII outside the control of administrator, and they may not have the centralized system to apply the policies and the regulatory which is required for our data privacy, that can be corresponding to PII, that can be corresponding to PCI or any other data protection standard or requirement. Next is corresponding to information flow management. Here we say there is a sufficient centralization control to manage PII, but in case of IoT devices that may be complex and dynamic with sensitive functionality that can collect PII being frequently added and removed. IoT devices may not support standardized mechanisms for centralized data management, and the sheer number of IoT devices to manage may be overwhelming. The IoT devices may not have the capability to support configurations such as remote activation prevention, limited data reporting, notice of collection, and data minimization. IoT devices may indiscriminately collect the sensitive data, heterogeneously ownership of the devices, challenges traditional data management techniques, centralized data processing functions, and heterogeneous ownership of IoT devices, challenge traditional data management processes with respect to checking for accuracy of data, decentralized data processing function, a heterogeneous ownership of IoT devices, challenge traditional de-identification process. So this is what we understand about the challenges we may face while we are going for this mitigation techniques in case of the IoT devices, which we may not face if we are going for the IT devices, that is information technology devices. So thank you. This is what we are going to cover in today's session.